everybody. Welcome back to Truth Teller Tales. I'm Ellen, and I am dedicated to interviewing those truth seekers who became truth tellers and all have a strong faith during this most incredible time in our history. And today I'm just really excited to speak to a gentleman who he's a podcaster with so many people who watch him, subscribe to him, follow him on different platforms. And he talks about topics of the day and news items. And he sometimes throws in the absurdity of the liberal side of things, but he does it in in just a cool, funny way, and he's so engaging, and I'm just really excited to be able to talk to him today and really honored. And Matt Christiansen, hi, thank you for being here.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. This is just really cool. You have, you know, so many people that watch you, and you're just engaging, and you're not you just has such a nice way about you. And so for those folks that there aren't many, but that don't know kind of what you do, can you just explain what your hopes are and what you're doing right now as a podcaster?
Oh, well, thanks for the kind words. I don't know that I've ever known exactly what I'm doing, but I'm doing something and it's got me this far and
I
I'm
know.
but if I had to summarize, if people aren't familiar with me, I think you got it pretty much exactly right. I'm talking about the issues of the day from generally, I would say, a libertarian, constitutional, conservative perspective. But I want to do two things with that. I want it to be entertaining. I want it to be fun to watch, in addition to, I hope, sharp or intellectually interesting. But I really want to focus on first principles and philosophical cores too. It's about the news of the day, but let's get at the fundamental ideas that are actually behind it and how we should interpret
Mhm.
these news events through core ideas that are really timeless. If I had to summarize it, that would be it. But, as we were talking about before we recorded here, there are, I don't know, dirty, poor taste jokes mix in there. It,
But I love it.
it's not highbrow all the time. I want it to be a little fun too.
It is fun, and sometimes the news creates the humor itself. You can't make this stuff up. You know what I mean? Of certain things that are going on. And the way you present it is it's just really engaging, and I enjoy it very much, and so do a lot of people,
Well, thanks.
as well. So, we are living in just such unusual times, and I just wanna hear kind of about you, in this, broadcast. So, take us back. I want this to be fun for you, since you're always doing all the work of having to get all this material and stuff, but this is kind of just about you and your life. So tell us where you started, where you were born, about your family life, just things like that.
All right, let's go way, way back then. Well, I was born in 1987. I just turned 38 years old. So I'm
Wow.
somewhere, I'm not young. I'm not old. I don't know if I qualify for middle age, but I'm somewhere in that area.
Yeah.
I just had my third son. I'm a father of three now, married.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
family man, our firstborn was 2021. So we're on a 2-year schedule. We have a boy every 2 years. We're building an army. We're building a baseball team.
I
But to
love
go
it.
back in time, as you said, I was born suburban
Yeah.
Minneapolis, 1987. Um, to make a long story short, my family grew tired of the urban suburban lifestyle. My parents took everything they had to go build a cabin in Montana when I was 10 years old. And so we came here. I went to junior high, high school in Montana. I went to school on the West Coast in Portland, Oregon. I got a degree in political science. That brought me to my first adult job down in the Bay Area of California, East Bay, California, for a couple of years. At the time, I was a person of left wing perspective. I've always been a politically
Oh,
interested, but
wow.
yeah, I was a left winger all the way up until 2016, 2015, kind of the dawn of the Trump era. And
That's
uh,
fascinating.
and so I lived in California for a couple of years, realized I could not stand living there, convinced my employer to let me work remotely. I came back to Montana, and actually I got to get into how I got into creating online media. I actually got started with video games. I was away from friends and family. through college and through the early stages of my career, I kept up with my friends playing Call of Duty and playing Xbox. And we'd have so many funny interactions online with all the random people we're playing the game with that I started making videos of our encounters. Like I would just have a recording running. And if you've ever played online video games, half
Mhm.
to me at least, is it's like chat roulette. You never know who you're going to get
Yeah.
paired with. And when you have young male energy combined with online anonymity and a voice recording device, there's a lot of people that just want to get on there to talk S. I don't know what words I
Yeah.
use on this show or not, but
Too
um,
many.
and so that's how I got started, was recording all this S talking. It was hilarious
Yeah.
to me and my friends. And over time, a few things happened. Xbox kind of cracked down on some of that stuff, got a little more censorship happy. I grew up, I became a man, I think, and I just didn't play as
Yeah.
much Xbox. But I still had this kind of small core YouTube channel built on this video game content, but I didn't want to leave it. I'm just more interested in news, philosophy. So I just
Yep.
started making videos that were about that. I still had a full time job at the time. And it became very clear to me in 2016, when I was placed under the management of somebody else at this job, that that was not what I was supposed to be doing. And it seemed insane to me. I remember calling my mom because, so what was I, 28 at the time, I think? It was summer 2016. I was 28. And I called my mom and said, I think I'm going to quit my job and try to YouTube, just take whatever I have saved up and I'm going to try to YouTube. And of course, I have a great mom. That's one great, both of my parents, they're still together. They've been a great rock for me. And it's what I hope to do for my boys too. But I
Yeah.
was able to take that risk because I know that if I fail, like, well, I guess it's mom's basement for me or something. And, I'll go back and live with my parents and try again. But I took
Right.
what I had and I knew that I could gamble a little bit because I have the security of my family.
Yep.
And I started YouTubing and I did a couple videos a week. I started doing streams. The format of that has changed over time, but it's generally similar to what I do now. And I was able
Mhm.
to build it into something that has an audience and allows me to do
Big.
this on a full-time basis, and God willing, that's what I'll do for the rest of my days because I love doing it.
Oh, you will. I mean, that's a big audience, but, I wanna go back. So you're in Montana, and so, a cabin, you said that they built, and so did you were you was it public school that you went to?
I went to public school, yeah. I went
Were you
It's a
the
small town, Red Lodge, Montana, south of Billings, kind of a little
oh,
ski town. Yeah.
well, that's a was that a conservative town? Was your family
Yeah.
did they talk to politics or
My
anything like
parents are
that?
kind of like, my parents were not inherently political. I became politically interested because I was growing up in sort of the Bush era, the George W. Bush era, and I hated the
Mhm.
wars.
Yep.
And so I became a left winger, I think, out of opposition to what George W. Bush and company were doing. And looking
Yeah.
back, I still have a lot of questions about things that we did in that era. But that's what got me politically motivated.
Yeah.
My parents were not
Yes.
inherently political people. I would say they were
Mhm.
something of like Reagan Democrats, like
Mhm.
probably going to vote Democrat more often than not. But they're sane, they're connected to reality.
Yeah.
You might have disagreements about like tax rates or something, but they don't believe in the
Right.
insane things that we see now.
Yes, indeed. And so, back then too, when you were going to public school, were you the person that was followed the rules? Did you not follow the rules? Were
Mm.
you an athlete? What were you like
Uh,
back then?
I grew up skateboarding and snowboarding, and so
Oh,
I wasn't into traditional sports. I didn't play like any high school sports or anything. But I've always loved video content too, and I guess I should have mentioned that because I was so into skateboarding and snowboarding. That's like all I did outside of school, my friends and I would make at the time skateboard and snowboard videos. And
oh,
back then, I used to burn them to DVDs because that was the only way that you could share them. Like I would give them to people. I made this movie, watch it. And I remember my senior year of high school, which was 2006. So this is spring of 2006. I'm sitting in the computer lab at the high school there, and YouTube is a new thing. And I remember because my family, we had dial up the whole time. Like you couldn't play video games on that. You couldn't really, you're not streaming on that. You probably couldn't post it. It would take forever to upload a video on that. and there wasn't even any place to upload it at the time. But I remember sitting in the lab and thinking, this is so crazy and cool. Like the videos I make, which back then were skateboard and snowboard videos, I could post them and anybody could watch them anywhere. And I
Yeah.
remember just the amazement with that. And of course, I had no intent or idea that that's where I would go with my future. But yeah, those were my hobbies and those were my interests. Video has always been a part of that, but I just didn't
Mhm.
necessarily envision it in the way it has developed.
Yeah, but isn't it crazy that when you look back at your life, that all those things have to line up,
Yeah.
in order to be where you are today? And so, I so when you were a child, obviously, in Montana, it probably was a picturesque, lovely place to grow up, and it sounds like there's a lot of outdoor things going on. So, do you have great memories of that, spending things outside? Did you have siblings you did things with, or did you just hang out with your friends that you grew up with?
Yeah, well, my sibling story is a very difficult one, but it's very important to who I am. So I
Okay.
did have a younger brother, and
Mhm.
we enjoyed all the same things growing up. My brother joined the army right out of high school. He joined the 82nd Airborne. He was a paratrooper, and he was
Wow.
deployed to Kandahar, Afghanistan. In let's see, he went there in early 2009, or no, that was like mid 2009. It was early 2010. He and his patrol were hit by IED. Two guys were killed. My brother was permanently disabled, and
Oh,
unfortunately 3 years later I lost him to suicide, and we shared the
oh,
house together. And I know it's kind of a dark era of my life to go through, but we
yeah, but
lived in
that's
that house together, and where I built my channel after the fact was that same house. And so in terms of understanding who I am and what has
right.
motivated me and what has driven me to build something out of the
Mhm,
resource that was that place that we shared. I mean, that's it. It's kind of impossible to know me without knowing my brother, insofar as he's
mhm,
a part of me every single day.
right.
And even though, we haven't shared a word together in over 10 years now, but that obviously that's a huge part in who I've become and what I've built. And I still think about him every day and wish we could have these conversations.
Mhm.
But yeah, so that's the story of what happened with my brother. I forget the
Yeah, and
original question. Sorry.
that's a no, but it was about your childhood
Yeah.
and who you hung out with and everything, and so, that's so interesting, um, and so once that happened, how long did it take you to get in the space where you were in that determined space
Oh
of,
man.
"Okay."
Yeah. So I should mention, if people want to know the full story of this, because this is a very long piece. There is an interview I had done previously that's on the homepage of my website,
Okay,
mattchristiansenmedia.com, that has the full story. I went through exactly what happened, so I won't go through
okay.
every detail. But to answer your question on what it was like, my brother and I were very close. Obviously, we lived in the same house. It was my mission to help him readjust to civilian life after a catastrophic injury. And
Mhm,
to have it develop the way that it did was not only a devastating loss, but it's one of those things where you think you can't help but go through the scenario of that night a million times and think, what if I had done this? What if I had done that? The thing about my brother, and the reason that he joined the army and became a paratrooper, my brother was fiercely independent in a way I admire. I mean,
mhm.
in many ways to a fault, and I think that ultimately led to what happened with him. But you cannot tell my brother what to do, and so I know eventually I was able to come to a place where it didn't matter if I grabbed him that night and put him in a
Yeah.
straitjacket. He would not have allowed that. And I don't know that's what a good brother would do. So it took me a little while to, you never really move beyond it, but I suppose to move beyond the sense of guilt or asking questions about what maybe you could have done to avoid that situation. I would say it was probably 6 months of my life where I
Mhm,
hardly even remember it. I was still working, I was still technically productive, but I
mhm.
don't really know what I was doing with my life. It's just kind of a blur. I was just surviving. on a
Mhm.
day-to-day basis. And this happened in May 2013. So I would say really probably through the rest of 2013, I was just kind of existing. And it took me
Mhm.
into 2014 to think, I guess, to reach more clarity on this. That is to say, this is the situation now. You can
Mhm.
either wallow and be sad about this and blame yourself or make yourself a victim or whatever coping mechanism you think is appropriate, or you can fulfill your mission from this day forward, which is to live a life that he would be proud of, to make use of what he had built and to give what he had meaning. And so it
Mhm.
became my purpose to make something out of that space that we shared. And of course, I built the channel out of that house. I met my wife through my YouTube channel. I have my boys now who never knew their uncle, but of course their uncle will still be a part of their lives. And when I left that house, we actually sold it in 2023 because it was
Okay.
a pretty small house. We need a bigger space. We got boys that are
Mhm.
going to fill rooms.
Yeah.
And houses are just places, they're just material. They're just two by
Right.
fours and concrete. And but I stood in the kitchen of that house by myself because I had to make the decision when we sold. When my brother died, I had a difficult decision to make, which was, okay, this was his house. I guess we can give it back to the bank and they'll just sell it. Or do I step in and buy this? And I couldn't, there was no way I was going to be able to move all of the stuff. It was too much. I can't. So I bought the house. I became the owner. My brother only lived in that house for, God, man, only a couple of years. And I ended up living there a decade. So by the end of into 2023, like this has been my house for 10 years now. My brother was there for a brief period of time, but I always felt like a caretaker of that place. This is not
Mhm.
my house. This is my brother's house, and I'm taking care of it for him, even if I'm paying
Yeah.
the bills now and I'm doing all this. So when we actually left, it was so psychologically difficult for me. It's like I stood in the kitchen by myself. My wife wasn't there. We just had our oldest boy at the time, but he wasn't there. My parents weren't there. It was just having a conversation with my brother. Like I'm leaving this house for the right reason. I get a little teary thinking about it, so bear with me. It was extremely difficult. It's like I felt like I was doing something bad to him and his space, like how could I leave this place? This is our place.
Mhm.
But I know that it was for the right reason and that I had used that space that we shared together to build something that matters, to build not just a career out of it, but the career that took me to the family that have now, built his nephews and the rest of
Yes.
this family going forward. So man, leaving that house, I think I emotionally got over the loss in 6 months to a year, though I think about it every day. But the wave of emotion and difficulty that came with leaving the house a decade later,
Mhm.
whew, it was tough. It was really hard to leave that house, even though I know it was the right decision. And
Yeah.
and I've
I
never gone
bet.
back to the house since. It's like 2 miles away from me. I didn't leave.
Oh,
I just moved
wow.
to a different spot in town, but I've never gone back to look at that house because I don't want to see it under anybody else's ownership. I
Yeah.
don't want to see what they've done to the I hope someone is taking
Right.
great care of it. But
Yeah.
to me, in my mind, it has to exist exactly the way that I remember it. I don't want to see it any other way.
Yeah. Gosh, it's so interesting. And then so, also during something that's such a a shocking thing for the family, did you feel like you had to be the brave brother for your mom and dad too at that same time? Because, when something like that happens, I guess everybody has their role too
Yeah,
in
well,
getting through it.
my parents at the time were living 2 or 3 hours away. They were still in Red Lodge. My brother and I were in Bozeman, where I still live, and that's a 2 or 3 hour drive. And so yeah, like I said, my parents are rock solid. They got through it. We have been by each other's side through all of this. I don't know if I would get through it without them. I don't know if they would get through it without
Mhm.
me. I think the psychology of it is a little bit different. That is to say, I think having this experience as a sibling is a little bit different than as a parent. I
Yes.
feel, like I said, getting over a certain sense of responsibility as a big brother was tough. but I am his brother in his house at the time. And so for any regret maybe I had about not intervening, I lived in his house as a guest. I was paying him rent to be there, but it's not my job to be the boss of how that house was run. And so I think I was able to reach clarity on that. But I do think, without getting too much into personal details, the experience for my parents is probably a little bit different. That is to say,
Yeah, sure.
uh, I'm a parent myself now. The sense of
Yeah,
responsibility I feel for my boys. If I went through that myself, I think the questions I would ask to myself would be much different than the ones that I asked as a brother. And that is not in any way to imply any degree of blame or something onto my parents.
right.
It's just to say that good parents feel an overwhelming sense of responsibility for their children. And
Yes,
I don't know that my parents will ever fully be over that, nor should they. I mean,
right. Yep,
nobody ideally should ever experience the loss of a child. Um, and
right.
so it's not something you just move on from, like, oh well, I guess that's
No,
that. Moving on. No, it's I think their experience was a little bit different from mine. I think they are in great shape, circumstances considered. So I don't want it to sound
yep.
like they're in bad shape. They actually moved to Bozeman at the same time, 2023, when we left the house. So my parents live right next door. They are daily
Hey,
care. They help with our boys every single day, and so to
that's
watch them
awesome.
become grandparents and to have the role of grandparent in the lives of my boys, it's awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
circumstances considered, this is the best situation that we could ask
Mhm,
for our family, other than, of course, having my brother here with us to enjoy it.
mhm.
So everything has worked out the best it could under those
Yeah,
circumstances.
yes.
I just know that that will be a scar for my parents until the day that they're gone.
As any parent, for sure, as you're a parent, now. But I have to just say one thing I just feel in my heart to say, um, on the journey I've been on, just downloading all kinds of information. I want information about everything, we've kinda been lied to about, and one of them was about, spirituality and life, and it
Mm.
was during the time both my parents died kinda back to back, and I just felt like I wanted to dive into the near-death experiences that people had. I watched hundreds of episodes and about the University of Virginia has this whole department for the last 50 years, that they talk to children who remember things like flying in airplanes and doing things that a five-year-old would never remember, and that, it gave me a sense of peace because I I do feel like our soul essence continues on, and what we're in right now is just the vehicle. I do feel very peaceful, thinking that the essence of who we are, our souls, last forever. And I feel in my heart that your brother is with you more now than ever before, and he's playing a part in everything you're doing. That's my opinion.
Oh yeah, it's a
Um,
it's a daily motivating factor, and I don't necessarily know what to make of dreams, but when I have important things happen in my life, like important decisions, I will get insanely realistic dreams. Like, he is just sitting there with me, we're having a conversation, and it's so real in the dream that
he is
I don't
that.
even realize that he's not there. You know what I mean? Like, it seems so normal and exactly the way that I remember it. And we'll talk about, like, oh, different updates, like, my wife is pregnant again, or I'm making this change or doing that. Um, and it's so, like I said, it's so real that it doesn't even seem weird. And then I wake up and it's kind of one of those, like, I wouldn't say it's jarring necessarily, but it's just kind of one of those things where it takes a moment to realize, like, you've transformed back into the real world now and you're not in dream world. So I do place personal significance in that because it's happened to me several times. It's like big milestones. I know that when people feel stress, you tend to have certain dream experiences. Maybe it's a function of that. But
No.
when I have big moments, I've had several of these extremely realistic conversations, and they never feel
So I
stressful in the dream. They feel good.
That's right, and I feel from my heart that that was real and those are true, and I'll just give you one quick thing. I normally don't tell any stories about myself, but because I just want you to understand why I'm saying this. After my dad passed away, my daughter was pregnant, and at the time we hadn't met her son, my grandson, and in a dream he came to me and with my grandson, and my grandson had this huge fingerprint dimple
Hmm.
on his on actually it was on his right side, like a fingerprint. And he said to me, "I will be with you. I will be with him. I will be with all of the children, grandchildren forever." And I woke up and I had felt really good too, you know. And then when my grandson was born, I walked in to the room and I looked at him and he's got a huge fingerprint dimple on his right side. And so my dad knew that the only way I would know that he actually was there, that I talked to him, is if I met my grandson ahead of time and had a moment like that where I knew. So those things are in of course I believe wholeheartedly, and I know truly believe those moments you have with your brother are absolutely real. Both of your consciousness and souls talking to each other, and it's beautiful and wonderful. And I just had to share that with you, so that you'll wake up feeling really happy about those moments,
Well,
because
thanks.
they're
Yeah, and
real.
and that's a great story. I'm glad to hear that you've had kind of similar experiences because that helps me process my own. And yeah, for me, it's a frequency thing too. It's not one time; it's a recurring thing. So it's hard for me to act like that is of no significance or just kind of a strange coincidence or something like that.
Yeah, and because you and your brother lived together and you often spoke and everything, obviously it would be recurring because he wants to stay in that and make sure that he's still there. And it's just amazing. Who we are. We are amazing beings, and the things that we are made up of, and who we actually are just bigger than we could ever imagine. Thank you, God. So it really is just a phenomenal time to be alive. Like in this awakening, we're starting to figure all these things out. So on your journey, so you were left leaning because of wars, understand where that all came from. Um, but then what were some of the things that started to turn your ideas when you said when Trump was in office, but what were some of the things that you were
Yeah.
starting to think
Well, I
about?
think for me, the biggest thing that has stayed consistent with me, I guess I would have always said that I was a fan of founding values, though I think in my left leaning days, I probably had a distorted vision of what that meant. But one thing that has always been extremely important to me is free speech, not just its First Amendment legal application, but the principle that the open and free battle of ideas is how we arrive at the truth. There's not one person that owns the truth or can deliver the truth to everybody. That's God
Right.
Himself, and none of us are God.
Yeah.
So, in order to get close to the truth, or as close as we possibly can as people, we have to have a free speech environment with no one person exerting control and trying to tell the rest of us what is true and what is not. That's always been very
Right.
important to me. I think the biggest defining moment for me, I remember it, I think it was spring 2016, but it was, Trump campaign pre his first election, and he had a big rally in Chicago, and I forget the venue, but a whole bunch of protesters, rioters shut it down by force. I think it was a big kind of stadium type venue, and they were on the floor, and they were so disruptive that the Trump campaign just quit. They said, whatever, we're not doing this event because it was too chaotic. And I remember the people who I thought, were on my quote unquote team, left wing people, were happy. They were gleeful that this political speech had been shut down by force. And at the time, I didn't think I liked Trump. Now I've since, come around on the guy, and I've voted for him every election that he's been in, including that one. And I think he generally is on the right track, though of course I, like anybody else, have things that I think he should be called out on and things he should be held
Mhm.
to account for. But my point is, back then I never would have envisioned in a million years that I would vote for Trump.
Mhm.
But I am not going to celebrate the forcible silencing of a political candidate because the principle of free speech is more important. Yet that's what I was seeing is people I thought were on my team and agreed with this idea did not. They'll happily shut down their opposition by force. That got me thinking about a bunch of other stuff. Well, I thought we agreed on this principle, but if you're wrong about that or you're betraying that, what else might you be wrong about? Or what else do you believe that maybe I haven't thought critically enough about? And since then, my mind has changed on a lot of things. Gun rights. I used to be a much more common sense gun control type person. And now I know a lot. It's one of those things, I think more than any issue, like the division on guns is people who know what they're talking about and people who don't. So as I became someone who knows what he's talking about, at least relatively speaking, with firearms, became
Yeah.
knowledgeable and trained and all that stuff, you
Yeah.
realize how a lot of the legal and political rhetoric on it is absolute nonsense.
Right.
But I think fundamentally, I just used to believe in a much larger role for government, or specifically the federal government. When I was um, young and of left wing perspective, I just used to think that the government could provide opportunity or resources where the market had it lacking. And I've
Mhm.
since come to doubt that pretty much the government's role is not to provide really anything at all. It is to secure our rights, as the Declaration of Independence states. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean picking up market slack or providing things where the market has not provided. The government is not wiser than the market itself. I think I
Right.
used to believe that to some degree, that where the market
Yeah.
is doesn't provide, the government can, and we should try to have it exert some beneficial influence there. So fundamentally, my view on the government has changed such that the constitutional framing is correct. We need a limited federal government, strictly defined in its scope. Everything
Yeah.
else you leave to the states for good reason,
Right.
and that way
Mhm.
you can get the political outcomes that you want. And if your state operates in a way you find to be bad or you disagree with,
Mhm.
you always have the option to go to a greener pasture in the next state over. That's the design of the system. That's what I've come to believe. I think I see it much more clearly now. But it all started with
Mhm.
that. Why are you guys into censorship now?
Yeah.
Moment. Yeah.
But why do you think, Matt, that's the thing. Why do you think you could cognitively make that question in your mind? Where you could step back and say, "Wait a minute," you know? Whereas so many other folks now cannot, and they can't go there. They just can't even question it. Why do you think that is?
I guess I would say it's very hard to admit that maybe you were wrong. Nobody likes doing that. I don't like doing that. I've changed
Right.
my mind on a lot of stuff, but anytime I am presented with superior evidence or reasoning on a point I've made, and that my audience will challenge me all the time. Um,
Mhm.
there is always a temptation to dig in your heels, and I
Right.
think that's part of human nature. To some degree, that might be good. You
Mhm.
want to be able to stand up against influence that is trying to exert control or power over you. But what's the famous line? There's a famous line like it's easier to deceive a man than convince him he's been deceived.
Yes. I
Yeah,
think Mark Twain said that.
something
Yes.
like that.
Yes.
So that's what
Exactly.
that's I think that's the psychological effect is just, and it really is a shame. I don't know if it's a social construct, as they say, or if it's just an inherent part of human psychology. But if there is a such thing as a social stigma that goes along with saying I was wrong or I've changed my mind, that should not be a thing that is viewed as a negative. It should be,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you don't want people to change their mind to nonsense opinions, but
Right.
it shouldn't be viewed as a character flaw for you to say,
Mhm.
I used to believe X, then I was presented with superior information or reasoning, so now I believe Y. If someone can explain to me why they've changed their mind, not
Yeah.
only am I not going to hold anything against them, I appreciate that whether they're right or wrong, they have thought it out in their mind and they can tell you this is why I believe this thing. So
Yes.
I don't know how you fix that, how you make people more comfortable with saying I was wrong. I include myself in
Yeah.
that. I don't like saying I was wrong, but sometimes you are.
Right.
You have to be able to do it.
Yeah, and to your point too, information is power, right? When you found out more about guns and you understood and as the information that you get and knowledge based on the information that you get is what allows us to then say, okay, I was wrong about it. But I think unfortunately, we have been psychologically told not to even question. I mean, that's our in school we just memorize and things, and so and follow a certain way of thinking, and that's I'm hoping that's what we're breaking out of right now, and I think that's what we are, and it takes all different people doing all different things like what you're doing in order for people to start to come out of that. So when you were on YouTube and then you went from doing the videos that you were doing of the snowboarding and things like that, how did you switch over, and did you end up gaining, you have so many people that are subscribed on YouTube. Did you get new people? Did other people drop off? How was that transition?
Yeah, well, I was able to carry some people over, but obviously, when you're changing from video games to like now I talk politics, that's not necessarily what
Yeah.
everybody signed up for. But back then, YouTube was so much more of a fun place because it really was a meritocracy, I guess you could say. Anybody who had compelling material could rise easily because YouTube didn't have its thumb on the scale in terms of policing opinions or information nearly as much. So if you
Mhm.
were a person who just happened to have the right idea or some kind of engaging content at the right moment, anybody could catch the wave. And I mean, you start a channel yesterday. If you post the right video, you will catch that algorithm and you will make significant gains on that basis. Because back then, all YouTube cared about was whether the material was engaging. Their system was just looking at, okay, here's a video with X amount of views, and the ratio of comments and likes to views on that is quite high. So our system is going to take that as an indicator that people are finding this interesting. Let's push this out there as a recommended piece of content to others. So there were several times early on in my kind of political career on YouTube, so like 2016 era, where I caught that algorithmic wave, videos that would get hundreds of thousands of views. And then you gather subscriptions very quickly. So back then, I was able to build an audience off of that because it was so much more of a free and open space. And so I think I really hit the right time to build what I have
Mhm.
now. It's
Right.
very, very difficult now because of all the different thumbs on the scale. And in the meantime, it's also become a much more saturated market. There's so many people
Yes.
making content that it's just hard to stand out, a lot harder than it was 10 years ago. So
Yeah,
all of
yeah.
those factors mean that if you wanted to flip a switch and become a different kind of creator, like I did 10 years ago, it was a much easier time, provided you were making things that were interesting and that people wanted to see. Thankfully, I was doing that at the time, but
Mhm.
I like to think I'm still doing that now. It's a lot
Yes,
harder
you
now, so
yeah.
the times have just changed. You could do that quite easily back then. If I had to do that today, like if I just decided, hey, I make football analysis videos, even if they're really good football breakdowns, I don't know that that would work that well. It's just harder to find the audience now than it was then.
Yeah, most definitely, and so s then came the plandemic, I call it, that we went through. How did that change for you? I mean,
Yeah.
did it change your how did that time change for you?
Well, just politically or philosophically, uh, I don't necessarily love to pat myself on the back, and I'm not trying to do that right here. But I would say I've been wrong about a lot of stuff in my life, and I'll freely admit to it. The
Mhm.
one thing I'm personally proud of is I never bought COVID nonsense for even a second, ever. And
Yay!
so I'm very proud to say, go back and listen to what I was saying in March of 2020. I knew it was crap from the start. And I'm personally very proud of it, not just for the like, oh, look, I was right kind of chest puffing or something. No, because this whole thing was a massive scam to steal power away from people and to try to make you
Yes.
feel afraid and to get you to submit. and to
Yes.
get them to create the circumstances that would allow them, and when I say them, I mean the powers that be, to get you to do almost anything on their whim. I'm convinced if Dr. Fauci told people that it's only safe to go outside with a thumb up your butt, the number of
Right.
people who would have done it is not zero. I'm not saying you have to wear a clown nose and a clown wig to the grocery store. That prevents COVID. You would have seen clown noses and clown wigs.
Yes,
And
you
so
would
I
have.
just felt so insane the whole time. Like, I can't, I know I'm not the only one who knows this is total crap, but thankfully, because I had built this up for myself, when I say this, I mean my channel and what was
Mhm.
an independent, what still is an independent outlet for information and commentary that is, exists through the support of my audience. I was in position to be able to say everything I thought about it. Now, if you're as much as I didn't like sort of what was a lot of unquestioning compliance, the truth is very few people were in the position that I was. That is to say, they were going to school. They had jobs with bosses who were telling them to do all this stuff. If you had told me now, hey, Matt, like your entire livelihood, including your ability to provide for those boys of yours, is dependent on you getting in line, I hope I would stick up against it because it's nonsense. And fundamentally, the truth is the most important value of them all. You don't sacrifice anything for the truth.
Right.
So I hope I would have resisted. I hope I would have stood up. But for me, I was in position to say all of these things that I believe to be true. And I think pretty much all of them were vindicated, stood the test of time. But I also recognize that I was in position to say those things. I was not having people with power over me trying to browbeat me into compliance. I was free to say what I thought. And that certainly
Right.
was not true for most people living through that.
Yeah. So were you ever afraid that you would be taken off of YouTube for saying
No,
those things?
what they did, and this started actually a little bit pre-COVID, 2019, they decided, I think in the kind of in the post-Trump first election era, oh man, look, we didn't really intervene in that last election cycle, and all of these people actually countered, the grip that we had on media, generally of left wing perspective or anti-Trump perspective.
Mhm.
So it was even before COVID. They decided in 2019, YouTube, we're only going to promote and deal with, I forget how they phrased it, trusted news sources, something like that. And everybody, myself included, who was outside of the trusted, generally cable news box, was put into this like other area, this kind of bad kid corner of YouTube where the things I was talking about earlier, where if you made the right video, you catch the wave and you get a lot of
Yep.
referrals and people
Yeah.
find your stuff organically. That was turned off. I mean, you can see it in my channel 2016 through 2019, like up, 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 up. And then 2019, flat, like a perfect plateau
Wow.
for years.
Wow.
And I understand, like, I, you, you can't hold everybody forever. Maybe people are bored with me. Maybe I'm not making good material anymore. What's so bizarre about that to me is ever since 2019, my channel has basically been stuck, glued at about 240 to 245,000 subscribers. If I was making terrible content that people didn't like anymore, that would go down. If
Right.
I it's so bizarre to me that you would just stay locked at one spot. But that's what they did. And so I can only speak for my channel. I don't know what experiences other people have had, but it's clearly meddled with at a particular point in 2019. This is the line. They decided that they're not promoting my videos to anybody organically anymore. And so really I kind of rely on word of mouth. That is to say,
Mhm.
you're somebody out there who likes to listen to my podcast or you like to listen to my videos on a weekly basis, you just tell your friends, your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, and I pick up people that way. Whenever I
Mhm.
hear about how people found me, oh, my brother liked listening to you, my friend liked listening to you, and that's how it is. It's not like, oh,
Yeah.
I was surfing YouTube one day and I just saw your
Yep.
video and clicked on it. They don't do
Yep.
that for me anymore. And the thing that's the worst about it is not only did they say we were, the bad people over in the corner that will never get the referrals. If you want, let's say you click on a 10 to 15-minute video of mine and you watch it all the way through. Now, in the old day of YouTube, YouTube would interpret that to mean, huh, they watched the whole thing. I guess they probably thought it was good. Let's give them another video of this guy's, and it would autoplay to the next one. In the new era of YouTube, my video, even if you watch it all the way through, is going to feed into Fox, MSNBC, CNN, corporate news outlets.
Oh,
So not only am I clawing for the people I've already attracted, they're
right.
taking them once they've watched my material and they're referring them to the corporate media entities. So I
Oh,
have to compete with them, and then I also feed them, which is
yeah.
complete insanity. And that's how it's operated for the last few years.
It is complete insanity. My gosh, that's so interesting. And so I know you look at emails and you talk about emails and things. And have you noticed over the last couple of years, do your comments have they gotten more divisive, more
Hmm.
less divisive? I mean, how has that gone for you too?
I actually deliberately avoid comment sections
Oh,
and kind of X or Twitter. Uh, I post my material there, but I don't do a lot of like conversing back and forth. And it's not because I don't appreciate and love my audience. I do. And that's exactly why I make myself accessible by email, both privately, in the way that you reached out to me, or
yep,
publicly in the way that you probably saw on the stream. People can send me emails for discussion on
yes,
the show.
right.
And that is to say that if people want to talk to me, I'm available. But I don't like engaging in anonymous comment sections for a
Yeah,
number of reasons. Number one, I just don't think it's good for human psychology to read anonymous people's comments about you, whether they're positive or negative. And for me, I could see 100 nice things. I could see 100 people saying, "This is a great video, Matt. Awesome job." And I appreciate them very much. I don't mean to dismiss them. But I know that I could see that. And I see one that says, "This video sucks and you suck." And I'll lose. If I start engaging in that, if I see
yep.
that, I'll have that temptation to respond. And then if I do
Mhm.
respond, all of a sudden you're in a back and forth war that'll take away half your day. And you will look very bad to your audience. It'll look like you're fighting your own audience. You don't need to do
Right.
that. And so it's I, I don't avoid these things again because I don't appreciate people's interaction. I very much do. I just know that it is psychologically difficult for me to engage with, and I know there are more risks than benefits. And so my solution is, if you want to talk to me, I'm very much available. You just have to
Yeah.
reach out privately. Just I'm not going to do it in the public back and forth way.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, in this um time with which I feel we're living in this awakening period, um, that people who have their moments like you did, hopefully more people will be starting to question and wake up. Honestly, and I just have to interject again, I think what you do is helping so much because you're the way you do it in such a humorous way. It just plants seeds for people. But in this time, I feel like this is also a very spiritual awakening as well. And whether it's you just being, a husband and a dad to three boys, um, um, has your spirituality seemed to grow over the years? And and if it has, what do you correlate that to?
The joke among my audience for years was I am Matt almost Christiansen, or I was. Because I was baptized Catholic as a boy. My mom's side of the family was Catholic, but religion, spirituality, that was never really a part of my life growing up and becoming a man. A lot
Hmm.
of that by my own choice. I would have called myself not an atheist, but an agnostic. That is to say, these questions are not knowable by us, so they're not really worth asking or considering. Now I'm completely my mind is completely changed on that. That is to say, just because we might not ever know for sure doesn't mean we shouldn't do everything we can to get as close to that truth as possible. Now, the world doesn't make sense to me if there I can look out there, there's an order to this world, there is an objective morality, there is right and wrong, there are rules above you and before you that you must follow. It's not just made up rules that we all decided one day by vote or by a king's decree or something like that. There are
Right.
rules to this world. And so when people call me Matt Almost Christiansen, I've been on a quest for a long time. When I say a long time, several years now, dating back to maybe 2020. Like, I can see the rules out there and I can feel them. Like, we know when we've broken the rules of the world because we feel bad. There's something to that.
Mhm.
Who wrote the rules? Where did the rules come from? So I've been on that quest. I started a Bible study, or I didn't start it. I had a member of my audience and someone who helps me in a lot of different ways come to me with the idea of who studies scripture himself. Hey, my Bible study has ended. What do you think about doing a Bible study with your audience? I think we started that in 2022, and we've worked our way
Oh,
through John's gospel. We did a little bit of Genesis into Acts, and now we're working our way through Ephesians. And I actually have a different Bible study leader now. But so I've been very curious about this and engaging with this for several years now. It was actually about this time last year because I had several professional disruptions about this time last year, September 2024. And through those disruptions, I had people in my email inbox coming at me with some of the worst stuff I've ever seen. Like, I hope the worst possible things for you and your family, and you have to watch them, without getting into details. But by virtue of these disruptive events in my life, there were two different types of people coming into my email inbox. I had people who know me through my material saying very nice things like, hey, tough times right now. I appreciate you, believe in you, and God bless you. Almost exclusively of a Christian perspective or a perspective of faith generally. And then I had
mhm.
these people who I call the demon people, because I want to be clear when I say that they are still people. They're entitled to all the rights that go along with that. But
Mhm.
I really believe there are people captured by demonic forces. And when I
Yeah,
say demon people, people is still an important word on that, not denying their
yeah.
humanity. But when I say demon people, I mean the sort of people who, because of a news story or something they've seen, would go and find a guy they don't know anything about, have never engaged with, find his contact, and send him hope for the worst possible things to happen to him. So I know it's very bizarre to find faith, or where I'm going with this is, it's been about a year that I've decided that I made the decision to follow Christ, to call myself a Christian and to embrace faith. It's weird to say I found that through an email inbox, but I did because the fork was so clear to me. It's like it presented itself to me. Okay, you have two different paths in this email inbox. One is a path of people who are wishing you uh, good things, blessings, and they're appealing to God in that pursuit. The other is a bunch of demon people who are like want to watch your family die and things like that. Which you have to pick one of these teams. Which
Yeah.
team are you picking? And from that day forward, I chose to follow this path. And
Mhm.
after choosing to follow the path, I started going to church in January. So that's a weekly part of life in my family. After you're in it, it's kind of like whether I told myself I was or not, isn't this the path that I've been following the whole time, really, though? It's like
Right.
you've been following the rules and you've been living the life, even if you don't understand that you're on the path that is following Jesus Christ.
Yep.
Now I just feel more clear about it. And that's not to
Yeah.
say that that I have every answer or I can cite every piece of scripture off the top of my head or something. I can't. It is to say that I have seen the results of people who choose to follow this path, and they are
Mhm.
almost exclusively better than people who don't. So I'm
Mhm.
gonna. That's what faith is. It is. It
Mhm.
is. It is accepting something without full and complete confidence or knowledge. I accept this, and I will continue to ask questions about it. But that's part. I guess in my prior life, I thought like, well, you can't really follow something if you don't know everything about it, or you don't have any, you've exhausted all questions about it. No, I mean, the questions are kind of the point. The point is the path. The point is the trajectory. The point is the commitment you're making to seek that truth. It's not knowing everything. It's trying to, but you'll never actually
Mhm.
know everything. So that's where I've been on for the last year, and I'm glad I got there. I know several in my audience wanted me to hurry up and get there quicker. And so there was kind of some of that for a couple of years, but I'm glad that
Yeah.
I did. And for me, it was very important to me when I say like I'm a Christian, I am of Christian faith. it was very important to me to be able to say why. And up until that point, when I saw this fork in my life, I wouldn't have been able to tell you exactly why. And I felt sort of fraudulent. Like if I embrace this title without telling you why I am, aren't I
Mhm.
kind of faking it? That's how I felt.
Right.
Now I
Yeah.
don't now I'm not faking it because I can you might think a story about an email inbox is silly, or you might think my claims about demon people are some sort of I don't know, so just some sort of kooky fantasy or something like that. But I can tell you why I have chosen this, and that's what
Right.
was important to me, the why question. I have to be able to
Yep.
say why to embrace the title.
Yeah, and you know what's so interesting is just like you said, God makes things pretty simple. So the message that you got of the 2 paths, to be very clear, was what the message you were supposed to get,
Yeah.
to make it that clear, and that's fantastic, and when you do have the eyes to see the divineness of so many things that happen in our lives that lead us exactly to where we are, then you can't be anything but happy and, um, Christ-like, in how you live your lives and peaceful, and you take that leap of faith of going the path of faithfulness as opposed to worrying all the time, which I used to do, and
Mhm.
it is a wonderful feeling and a peaceful feeling, and, um, it's a great example for your sons, and that's just such a cool thing that to share that, and I appreciate you sharing that so much, and I'm just so happy to hear that for you in this path that you're on, and what an amazing story that was. I loved every minute of it, Matt,
Well,
hearing
thanks.
everything, and, um and I know people can go back and watch your shows, but to watch you live, it's Wednesdays and Sundays. Am I correct with
It
that?
is, yeah. It's 9 Eastern. So the show formats are a
Okay.
little bit different. The Wednesday show, I do a little bit more audience interaction. Last night we are doing emails and calls and voicemails. So Sunday show, I usually have a guest segment, and it's a little more news content. Wednesday shows a little bit more audience interaction, but generally the same idea. About a 2-hour show, give or take, on Sunday and Wednesday nights. And then I've got I also do. Um, Edited videos or prepared videos. They're not live, but single topic
Mhm.
focused breakdowns on a news story that is kind of the core of what I make and generally what most people are viewing. And that those go up at 10 a.m. generally 10 a.m. Eastern Wednesday and Saturday. So those are the two types of content I make: shorter, focused, single topic analysis, and then longer form. I guess I try to style it in something like maybe a radio show, or it's a
Mhm.
podcast format thing, but long form, not necessarily scripted, breaking down stories in usually I don't know, a little more relaxed format, I hope, but a
Yeah,
lot more stupid bits and jokes and things that maybe some people like and some people don't, but just a little bit different in style.
I do. I'm an old grandmother, and I like it too. So I
I always worry it gets like too vulgar for the older crowd, but I don't want to be squeaky clean, but I don't want to be
yeah,
like Howard Stern either. I want to be
right.
somewhere in the middle. I want just enough. Like,
Right.
yeah, I want to be like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
no,
sometimes I wonder, I'm like, what am I aiming for, like really professional, or am I aiming for trash? And I never know. Like, as
no,
one day you might get CNN News, the next day you might get Jerry Springer. I don't know. It's
yeah,
somewhere between those things.
you got it. You hit you it's all good,
Yeah.
the way you're doing it for sure, and I will continue to enjoy everything you're doing. You're without knowing you, watching your shows, the genuineness of you comes through, and it's a calmness too, even when you're having fun, it's just a lovely, wonderful, way to get information and to chuckle at the same time. So, um, I'll continue to be watching, and thank you for doing what you're doing now, and then also thank you for sharing your story with me and the people that see this. I can't thank you enough, and I appreciate you being here more than you know.
Well, thanks for hosting, Ellen. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Great seeing you, Matt. Take care of yourself, okay?
You as well. Thank you.
Alrighty. Bye.